impression of this class, because there was the Actors Studio at the time. It was a very exciting and innovative time in acting, and and he was doing things that were quite different than maybe conventional approaches to acting at the time.
Well, I think that the thing about John, in terms of both Shadows and all of the things that I think he did, it seemed to me that he was always in a state of discovery, which I think is really what life is actually all about. Is you're always, I mean, it doesn't matter that I'm 74 and a half. I feel like a child. There's all this new stuff. What is this thing? Texting? What is that? You know? But that's the least of it. I mean, in terms of the bigger picture, there's so much that's new and different. And John was a person who was always, I felt, looking to discover and to understand and to be in with the changes.
Yeah, I was very struck when he was saying things like, I was trying to figure out how to make an entrance in a scene.
Right.
I was trying to figure out, and to see him learning those things with you, I guess, well, one of the obvious things that comes up is improv. Mm-hmm. I don't know how common that was at the time outside of his class, but I know it was a little bit going on in the Actors Studio as well. Mm-hmm. It was how was it different in his class?
Oh, well, the first scene I ever, well, not the first scene, but about the second or third, I did a monologue from Oscar Wilde's Salome. Partly because I had performed it as a dancer, and I was fascinated by the character. So I did this monologue, and it was really interesting because Ben was in it, Ben Carruthers, and Hugh Hurd, and I mean, all of these guys who were actually in the movie were playing, you know, were playing Herod and the guard and the this and the, you know, and so he got up and said, well, listen, how about, what would you do, blah, blah, I'm John the Baptist. And he said, well, what did I want in the scene? And I said, I want to control you and kiss you. That's what I said. So he said, okay, do it. So we did this improvisation where I was grabbing his hair, and I was really strong. You know, dancers are not anybody you want to mess around with, because they you know. And it went on, this improv went on for about 20 or 25 minutes. I say that in complete ignorance. It seemed like it went on for a long time. So from that moment on, my life there had changed dramatically. I suddenly was being invited to participate in this. We're going to do this. And all of a sudden, he came up to me one day and said, can you come in here on Sunday about 1 o'clock? What? Yeah, sure, 1 o'clock. And he walked away. But then I'm seeing him going over to Hugh Hurd and say, I don't know what he's saying to him. You know, and Hugh and I are now buddies because of the class and all that. And, well, it's another story. But the thing about it was that he spoke to about 4 people. Ben, Hugh, oh, God.
Tony? No.
No,
Tony was the guy, something Gibson.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You got that right.
The original person who played.
Oh God, you know that's what happens when you're 74 and a half. He played the manager in it. What? No. He played Hugh's manager.
I can't remember the name. It's okay.
Rupert Cross. Wonderful, wonderful man. I mean, just the best. I mean, so many of them were just extraordinary human beings. And so I sneaked up and I said, what did he say to you? And he said, well, he asked me to come here on Sunday. I said, oh, what for? He said, he didn't say. What did he say to you? So we were trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And so we all show up, and he starts in with this, you do blah, blah, and you're so-and-so's sister, and you're blah, blah, blah. Before you know it, we're doing stuff that we don't even know what the fuck is.
Oh, that's okay.
What?
An adult theater.
Yeah. Well, I was saying.
You don't know the comments I was refraining about wrestling with dancers.
Anyway, so the next thing that happened was that nobody knew what the hell was going on, and he left there, and the next day he came in and said, well, we're going to make a movie of that. And what? And he said, well, I was just on Gene Shepard, and and all of a sudden, before you knew it, Mo was there, and we had an office there, and money started coming in. But I mean, money for $1, $5, but once they took it and cashed it, they had to do something with it.
This is I don't know how many people are familiar with the Gene Shepard story, but he had a radio show that John went on regularly, and he said, well, gave a very impassioned speech. Do you know the story?
I know the story. No, you tell it, because I didn't hear it.
Oh. I didn't hear the monologue either, but he said, does anyone want to see a movie like made by the people, for the people? And if they do, outside of the system, send me just $1. And then people started showing up at the studio with dollars in envelopes, and he had like $2,000 or $3,000. That was the beginning of how Shadows was funded. That's why it says presented by Gene Shepard's Night People.
Gene Shepard's Night People. Night People. Yeah. And so that was it. I mean, there was a different guy who then got and he insisted his girlfriend play my part. And then he got a job in California, so he left, and they dumped his girlfriend, and I got back my part. So, and it was just this incredible adventure.
What was that first improv like? I've always wondered, the very first time you did that scene, how much does it relate even to the final product?
I have no idea, because it was such a shock, because all of a sudden we're sitting there, we haven't worked on anything, and all of a sudden somebody walks in, he's told them to walk in and say blah blah blah, and so we're shocked that so we have to figure out what we're doing, and I mean, none of that of course was photographed, and I don't even think any of it was in the film, to tell you the absolute truth, except for my relationship with Hugh. Hugh was somebody who kind of was like a brother to me. I mean, he was very worried that I didn't eat. Have you eaten today? And I said, well, I had breakfast. Well, come on, let's go to, and then we'd go to this Greasy Spoon or whatever they call those places, and he'd feed me, so sweet.
Yeah. Now, I understand that, I'd like to ask questions in a second about the relationship between improv and the final sort of script, whatever that was, because I know his later films were very scripted, and there's more of a balance in this one.
Right.
But in a sense, you were, in a way, kind of a collaborator in terms of creating the story. I know that he encouraged you guys, you said on the Criterion interview that you were encouraged to hang out with the other actors as a way to kind of explore characters. Like, how did those kind of relationships affect the film?
Well, I don't know that we were encouraged. It's just the way it was. I mean, I'm not sure that the relationships that he saw, like Hugh constantly looking after me, because I was in New York, and as far as everybody was concerned, I was on my own, and I didn't have a job. I was just, going there and trying to figure out what do you do when you're in New York and you want to be somebody or do something. I mean, I had no idea, because the musical fell through. So the next thing that happened was that Hugh absolutely became my brother. I mean, in a way that he was so mindful of how I was doing and what was going on. Where was I staying? I mean, he was really very concerned about my well-being. I think that John saw that, and all of the people there had a particular relationship with each other. So I think he just saw what was and pulled it out and then created the rest of it.
Would things that you said become back to you written down, or?
You mean in terms of our personal relationships?
Or just maybe either out of improv or out of improv. Just things that you would observe and you'd be like, wow, I said that yesterday and here I am doing it again.
Well, the thing about it is that there wasn't a script. The whole situation was really, truly improvised. And there were a couple of little things that were added to the film later, those were little teeny things that were written. But there was no way that after 2 years of being back in California, the whole other side, I got married, I was getting divorced, that I could ever come back and be that person, and be that person from the way that improvisation happens. So it had to be, like the bedroom sequence, where I'm in bed with Tony.
Which was almost 2 years later. That was added.
Right. That was scripted. There were like 7 lines in it or something. It's not like a big script. But I could never have conceived of that in relationship to where I was at, at that time. So it was brilliant on his part to do that.
But there'd be all this sort of room in how the scene was played.
Oh, everything. There was always room.
Yeah, no, incredible freedom.
Yeah.
Because he was so on the actor's side.
Yeah.
What would you say you took out of it as an actor now that still continues? I mean, I remember him talking about the heroicism of the actor, or like what sort of lessons have you learned that have applied to other films just from having worked so closely with them for that period of time?
Well, I think I have to say that I think my own personal nature was very well suited for that project, for one thing, and I think that a lot of other people preferred to have more structure than that. But I found that the thing that was an absolute, I was a dancer. You can't mess up as a dancer because you could get hurt. You could get hurt, somebody else could get hurt. You can't improvise. Alvin Ailey, you had to be very careful that you didn't jump until you knew he was standing there to catch you, because he might be over there, But in acting, you could be that free. And the thing I learned from working in this film with John, because he was so encouraging and generous, was that if you didn't dare, you couldn't do. And daring, I mean, the whole thing of daring means you could fail. But if you don't dare, you can't achieve anything. And I was almost going to say a bad word, but
it's okay.
My friend Elaine was here, so I'm not going to do that.
So you had to have